Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of Blue Leadership with your host, Dennis Nair. Dennis is a 26-year law enforcement veteran and retired chief from the state of New York. He's also a proud graduate of the 240th session of the FBI National Academy and the 61st session of the FBI Lead Command Institute. The Blue Leadership video podcast is brought to you by the nationally ranked Master of Science in Law Enforcement and Public Safety Leadership Program at the University of San Diego. You can learn more about the LEPSL program at criminaljustice.sandiego.edu. And with that, I will kick things over to your host to introduce our featured guest. Thank you.
Kylie, thank you. Great to be back. Episode 14. They're just flying by. And so today's guest is Chief Shawn Butler. Chief Butler completed a 25-year law enforcement career here in the state of New York. The last 5 years were at the chief level for the city of Auburn, where he did his entire career. And after retiring, we're going to talk a little bit about what he did and his new venture, which is now he's the Director of Public Safety for the Catawba Nation in South Carolina. Graduated the 274th session of the FBI National Academy, has his Master of Science in the Law Enforcement and Public Safety Leadership Program, LEPSL as we know it, from the University of San Diego. And without further ado, Chief Butler, thanks for being here.
Chief, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure and honor.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's also nice to see a fellow New Yorker now living in a nice warmer climate. So I am jealous. So I want to talk. So the first thing, and you and I talked when I was the chief in Ithaca and you were still the chief in Auburn, and you said, you're going to be retiring soon and you're just going to take a few months off and travel. And you did exactly that. And can you just share a little bit what you did right after you retired?
Yeah, absolutely. I joke, and it happens to be the moons aligned to really make that all happen. And what I mean by that is our children were all at an age and they were heading in a direction of self-sufficiency and support. And it really allowed my wife and I to really take a trip of a lifetime. And what we ended up doing, and we knew I had announced, as you know, my retirement about a year in advance, and it really allowed us to plan our next step and our next phase. And we knew we were going to move south to the Carolinas. So we sold our house, we bought a new truck and an RV, and we headed out for 3 months on the road and took really the trip of a lifetime and really experienced what this great nation has to offer. We hit 23 different states and completed about, I think, 13,000 miles on the road. And it was, I don't regret it for a minute. It really allowed both of us to decompress from our each of our professions, and it really revamped our energy level. And you hear people say, I wish I could do that. And my advice to anybody in any field is do it while you're young, do it while you're still mobile and you can really enjoy the national parks and get out there and explore this great country. So.
Yeah. And you just answered one of the follow-ups I was going to have is, I mean, you in your role, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the tail end of being a chief with the 2020, the pandemic, the reforms, so much. The decompression component must have been huge. I mean, did you feel that right away once you just hit the open road?
Probably about 3 to 4 weeks in, because you're as a law enforcement professional, as you know, we're so structured and detail oriented, and we live most of us, and from people that are similar to me, live a very structured life. So to now go off the grid and not have daily structure of reporting to work, wearing a uniform, actually having to decide what I'm going to wear every day. It was tough at first, but I tell you, once we got into the groove, I don't regret a single day of that decision.
And once it was done and you were midway through and actually now in your stride, did you really just start feeling like the weight of all that you had to bear as a police chief kind of disappear?
And I'm sure you share in those sentiments as well, but absolutely. People often ask, why did you choose to retire? I had great support from our elected leaders. My city manager and I were not only friends, but we really got along as boss and subordinate, if you will. Yeah, our department was really hitting a stride, but it was not only going out on top, it was just the right time for me personally. And I tell my fellow officers and supervisors and command staff, you're going to know, and it's okay to be selfish. And that's kind of what it felt like. It was a bit selfish, but you have to do what's right for your family at the time. And again, I do miss the people. I do miss a lot of aspects of the job, but I don't regret the decision that I made. It was the right decision for my family and for me at that time, and it led me to new opportunities.
Oh, for sure. And with being a chief, there's never the right time because there's always a project underway, always something happens that's big news, always something. So if you wait for it to be everything aligned, it'll never happen. And you wouldn't have had the chance to enjoy what you're doing now.
Absolutely.
And so let's go back now. So we talk about some of the things that, and the people from the outside who don't bear that burden can never truly understand the challenges of, every day it's a crisis. Every day it's something major. It's something important, of something that has to be done. And that's in the normal times. In addition, we were serving in the year 2020 as chiefs, where you were dealing with the reforms, Executive Order 203, the pandemic, violent crime surges, lots of changes. Can you talk a little bit about that and your experiences in Auburn and maybe the value that your advanced LEPSL degree from USD helped in managing and navigating that?
Sure, absolutely. And to speak right off the bat about the LEPSL experience in going through that, and I really took off from that right out of graduating from the NA. I took the master level courses knowing that I wanted to further my education. To take a step back, I had left my undergraduate program because I got hired by the city of Auburn back in back in early 1996. And so I did not go back to complete my degree for 20 years later. Really, at the time I was appointed chief of police, I was involved in a program. So it took me that long, life, kids, just different priorities to get back into education. And that really, to be honest with you, kind of led into the FBI Academy and then naturally progressed into the LEPSL program. So long story short, maturity had a lot to do with advancing my educational degrees. And it gives you a humongous basis for the ability to critically think during stressful times. The interaction with other students across the country who were going through very similar situations, but handling them possibly different, and being able to bounce things off of it, just like the FBI Academy and that network that you create there, it still lives on today, and you're class 240. So it goes on forever, and being able to share experiences and to learn from others all across the world really is an amazing ability. And that's the same thing with the LEPSL family that you create and that you work with in order to get your degree. So Executive Order 203, I think you could probably speak similarly to me. It really wasn't a big deal for the city of Auburn because we were well prepared for what those requirements and standards were. If you were a progressive police leader, you had those things in place or were working towards those. Things like accreditation, body cams. Those are all parts of being a progressive leader. And really to us, it was just putting pen to paper and documenting everything that we have done. Community relations. That's part of policing and police leadership in the 2020s. If you're not engaged with your community and you don't have them involved in being part of the process, then you're not going to last very long in this career. So again, I don't want it to sound cocky, but I think we were well positioned and well prepared to handle those types of incidents. We had our own demonstrations, maybe not to the level, unfortunately, that you did, Chief, in Ithaca, but You had a different dynamic from elected leaders than I did. I was so fortunate and blessed to have the support of all our elected leaders and my city manager. And then to transition to him with COVID, my city manager at the time, and he's still there, was a retired fire chief from the city of Auburn. He had, he teaches at State Fire Academy. He had an amazing amount of background in command situations, and he was made for those types of situations. And he really led for the county. To be honest with you, he led the charge for our COVID response as a city leader, but really for the county, and really set up structures to guide all of us, all departments through that. And I think we were really cutting edge on how we handled those things. And I'll give him all the credit due, because I've never been through, obviously, a pandemic. Most people have not. We haven't prepared for that, but if you have leaders that have those abilities, you let them go to the front, and you let them lead. And that's exactly what he did. And it paid dividends for the city, and I learned an immense amount from him.
Yeah, and I think it's also such an attribute, and obviously you're a very humble person, but your leadership, I'm sure you don't even necessarily have to have a playbook to just pull out all the stops for leadership and make things happen. And then if you have that synergy with the right person you answer to, and then the people below you are all on the same page, I mean, that's where you achieve great things, and that's why you were so successful in your mission. The other thing I noticed is you said it. I really think analogies are good because they're relatable, and the time to fix a leaking roof is not when it's raining. And
Absolutely.
That's just, and you talked relationships and that relationship building. And that's why, when you have, say, that 2020 dynamic with the distrust of the whole institution of policing, you had relationships that were built that they could say, well, Chief Butler and his agency, they're not like that. They reflect and represent what we want. And that's huge. And that brings me to my next part. So now here you are, a new state. You went from local government to now tribal government. Can you talk a little bit to the listeners and viewers about building relationships and how that plays into your new role?
Absolutely. And, that's something we spoke about. And I reiterate this all the time. I really think the magic, or the secret to my success, is all about relationship building and making sure that you have those connections, because, as you said, you don't want to have to build those in the middle of a crisis. You want to have the numbers, the people, the know-how, to have those all in place. And that's really, I'm coming in here, I know nobody. I have support that I think the initial support, it's something that's got to be proven over time. But I have to build a police department. And just for some background, that's my role. I'm the director of public safety for the Catawba Nation, and I am charged with developing and implementing the nation's first police force. So there is nothing in play. This is from the ground up, and it's from officers to policies, procedures, you name it. I got to buy cars, radios, everything that somebody may have in place, or that we inherited as chiefs of police in New York. I have none of that. So I have to learn, and it's an open field, but that's a huge, not only an advantage, but it's a great opportunity to build something unique for the nation, to serve its people in, like I said, in a unique way, because policing in Indian country, though there are similarities to municipal policing, there's a lot of cultural differences and things that they expect from their law enforcement service leaders that I want to make sure that I integrate into the culture of the police department and how we serve these people. Historically, Indigenous people across the country are underserved by law enforcement. I'm learning. This is all new to me, because it goes from relationships on the local level all the way up to the federal level with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. There's a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of red tape involved with that. But I've been here since November, and a lot of that focus has really been getting out there and meeting people and saying, hey, we're here, even though you've known we're there for a long time. This is what we're looking to do, and we'd love to partner with you, and we'd really appreciate your help. And I've gotten an incredible amount of support thus far all across the gamut, and we're looking to really develop something wonderful for our people on the nation, and as well as the community here in South Carolina.
Yeah, a few things jump out as I'm listening to all that. I'm trying to extract, just the leadership components, and one, that adaptability and flexibility to know, okay, you were extremely successful here, but you have that beginner's mind to say, I'm somewhere new. I have to learn things. And then how that connects so well to that advanced education, because, we talk critical thinking and learning things, but it also means that you're forever a student.
Absolutely.
And I just really feel that mindset sets you up for success, because I think a lot of people could be a chief somewhere and think, well, they're doing it well there, so it'll be equally well wherever else. And that's not always the case. But you look at what that LEPSL program builds in its students, I think it just creates what you just enunciated, that type of mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you're exactly right. The formula may not always work, but what I would really project to our viewers and listeners is building collaboration and building partnerships, I think, is universal across the board. You may have to adjust in certain dynamics, but specifically cultures and areas, they're always going to be different. You may not always have supportive elected leaders, or you may not always have supportive community members. But if you take that mindset of going out, that you are a genuine person, that you are really trying to build relationships for the right reasons and build that collaborative spirit, I think that those keys will work almost anywhere.
Agreed. And also, with the internet, people can do a Google search and they could find out whatever they want about a new chief from where they led previously. And also, there's certain things that no one can ever take away. And that's, as a graduate of the FBI's National Academy, as a graduate of University of San Diego's LEPSL program,
Absolutely.
And as a chief from an accredited agency. I mean, those are things that no matter how many differences you have where you are now, those are, I think, foundational blocks that's just going to always help you excel.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, our educations that we've received, nobody can ever take that away. That's ours. We earn that, and that travels with you universally wherever your career or your life may take you. And learning, and I think it's an example for our children as well. It is a lifelong. I completed, my LEPSL degree at 47 years old. Maybe not common. I think it is in our in our law enforcement careers, but my daughter's in her graduate studies now. We're definitely older and maybe not traditional students in the traditional sense.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think, I'm going to move on, but my last thought on that is, I think when you're looking at two people and a lot of equal skills and accomplishments, then you're going to have the person that has that advanced degree, and they're going to be the recipient of whatever that job offer is, because they've just done something much further than their counterpart.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask you your differences. So if you had to come up with, and I know you're still obviously feeling all of that out, between the local government and the tribal, what are the things that you see as the most differences and conversely the most similar?
So the most differences is probably the community. So here at the Catawba Nation on the reservation, we serve about 1,200 people. So about 700 of those are enrolled tribal members. They're very close knit, and we come from cities of similar size, Chief, but in a smaller community, like any town and village. But this is different. They're family. They all have similar lineage. They know everybody. And culture and history is very important. And that's something that I am well aware of as an outsider coming in. I have to earn, and it's similar, we have to earn trust. We have to earn our stripes, if you may. But I have to learn the culture. I have to, allow them to let me in to learn that. And you can't come in with traditional law enforcement experience and expect that's going to transition or to be interpreted the same way. So that's the one great thing about why tribal police exist. It's another way for nations to exercise their sovereignty or self-governance. What might be, and I try to make a similarity, what might be pretty unique to traditional United States law enforcement are diversionary courts. Those are things that have been in place in tribal nations for quite some time, trying to deal in a different manner, a healing manner, with those that may go astray within society. And that's really, it's taking it down to a base cultural, familial level to try to heal your own people. And that's really something that's unique and something that I have to be really aware of when we build this police department out. Similarities, structure, and I'm sure tribal government structure comes from the Americanized governments. So we have a chief who would be similar to a mayor, and then executive committee members, which would be similar to a city council, all elected, and they have general elections twice a year on certain things like laws, ordinances, things that they want to pass. So those things are very similar function-wise, but definitely a lot of unique differences as well, which are exciting to learn.
Do you have a timeline that you want to have your first officer hired and then maybe your first shift developed to respond to calls?
So, a lot of that, and in my mind, I'd love to have our first uniform or our first hire by this time next year. A lot of that's out of my control because of the bureaucracy, and be quite blunt with you. Again, something that every law enforcement agency in the country needs is an ORI. Well, you ever have to go find and develop an ORI? I mean, usually we don't. We inherit something like that, right? But that's something I have to go through all the steps in order to do. So it's learning those processes that I really wasn't aware of because I never had to deal with it. That the ORI to any law enforcement agency is really your existence. If you don't have an ORI, you don't exist. You're not recognized. So those types of things are really slowing the process down. I'd really love to hit that goal, but the one great thing is, again, the support that I have from our elected leaders. They haven't really put a time frame on it. There's enough other things that I can do in the meantime while I'm waiting, which I'm doing, to really fill that gap of time.
Yeah, and I would also imagine that also, at the very start of something, the initial expenses, because you're starting with 0 vehicles and trying to build up a fleet and 0 uniforms and equipment. But then once you have that all, it's simple maintenance and that's easy. So I'm sure that's something that you have to continually prevent people from being too scared of the process.
Well, everybody's in the budgeting class right now. Really pay attention to that, because that really is important for your career if you want to advance into police leadership. It's funny you mentioned that. I'm actually getting ready to prepare my first budget proposal, that theoretic, unknown, blank slate. What are we going to need to get this running budget to our elected members very soon? And I need that in order to progress through the ORI request process.
Yeah, and when this is all said and done, you will be an expert, because how many people start an agency from scratch?
Right.
So what I'd like to ask is, we talk so much about people building their careers, accelerating through them, and then it becomes like where we started off, the retirement phase, and people think about it, plan for it, because again, there's so much pressure. Even if someone loves the job, it's just unsustainable that you, at some point, and we talk the average lifespan now or not lifespan, but career span of a police chief could be maybe 1.5 to 3 years, where maybe at years prior was maybe 5 years. And that's just because of the times we're in and the continual pressures. So everyone, when they think of retirement, they don't necessarily have the roadmap laid out, but they know they want to be happy and successful. Can you share some of what you've learned, and maybe like you actually literally hit the open road, but some people may just want to do something else? What can you share that you think could be of value?
Well, I think of what's real value, and I wish I would have taken my own advice, but hindsight's 2020. Financial planning is huge. Absolutely. If you want to, unless you want to work for the rest of your life, um, yeah, people like us, we have a lot of energy. We always want to go, go, go. But like you said, being in this line of work with that fire hose and an open mouth, uh, survivability is, I mean, you really have to take that into account. The internalization of stress, you may not see it, but others around you are going to see it. That really takes a toll on your life, your lifespan. So financial planning, I think, is paramount. When, especially in New York, and when you have an opportunity to get enrolled in different plans like a 457 or deferred compensation, and you have a structured retirement through your state, those are all great things. It really is. And those people that are listening that have pension plans, it really is the lottery. I mean, those things are very unique. Not down in the South, they're not like they were in New York. I'll tell you that. So you really have to make sure your financial planning is in place if you want to have a nice retirement, a comfortable retirement. Take care of yourself physically. Again, that's another kudos to the FBI Academy. That really sparked my change in myself to pull my head out of the sand and say, listen, if you want to live a healthy and long retirement, you need to start taking care of yourself. So I prepared I went in 2018, and I really started getting into the gym, taking care of myself, taking it seriously. And that's, in my 40s, kind of late in life. I'd always been semi in shape, but as you've mentioned, Chief, going up through the ranks, you take on more stress, you take on more pressure. You have to have an outlet for that. So physical well-being, mental health well-being, those are all things. And I'm so glad in this point in my career, because when I started, and I'm sure you could attest to it, talking about mental health and mental well-being was not something that was, it wasn't an open conversation. We as cops always buried those things down, just brush it off. And we see the worst of the worst multiple times throughout our career, that most people could have PTSD from one encounter or involvement with a death scene. And we see that. How many times have we seen it over our careers? If you don't have an outlet, or you don't have an awareness and an ability to deal with those things, you're going to self-destruct. And we see it all too often. So finances, physical health, mental health, all things that you really got to take serious. You got to take serious, because the human body and the human mind can only take so much. And you got to be able to traverse that. And if you can't care for yourself, you can't care for your people. It's a simple analogy. It's a simple equation, but it's the truth.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, you look at wellness that you want to infuse within your agency, but if the leader isn't well, then it's not. It's missing the mark. Correct. It won't work. And what I also really like is just the acknowledgement. I mean, let's face it. This is a job. It's a job. It's a calling for most of us, but it is dealing with so much toxicity, and it's people's worst days are our everydays. Yep. And even if we're not handling them directly as chiefs, we're taking in what we know, what our officers are exposed to, and knowing that, our roles are to make it better for them. And there is a stress. And like you said, going to the gym, that's easy to say, well, I'll get there tomorrow. And then tomorrow becomes the next tomorrow. But making that as part of your plan for retirement, happy retirement, I think is huge. And one thing, Chief, you said, and what I think is, correct me if there's more to add on, but, we all work because we have high levels of energy and a passion for service. I think the nice thing about retirement is we can still do that, but we have the freedom now that if it's too stressful or we're not actually loving what we're doing, we can switch gears and shift and
no, you're right on the mark. And that is to have that it's freedom. It really is. We all, when we enter this, and we all hit that point of, we start counting the days until I can retire. Right. And I continued on 5 more years after that point, because I had more to give and I wanted to give more. You know, and I really loved my job when I left. I really did. But it was, again, it goes back to a personal choice. And that was really for my family and making sure that we were stable and we were at a good place in life, and it worked out well. But you have to do some serious self-reflection in this job continuously. And if it's not serving you like you want to serve others, then maybe it's not for you, because we're under that microscope, as everybody knows. We're on the nightly news every day. And if you're not there for the right reasons, one way or another, it's going to come out, and it's going to be a negative outcome.
Yeah. What a great, way to kind of tie everything together. And the fact is, and even if someone was there at their zenith and functioning at a high level, like we said, it's just not sustainable. And to have that self-awareness to recognize when that point is, and it's individual, but when it comes, start being ready to make the next chapter come alive.
Absolutely.
Chief Butler, thank you. This has been huge. I hope that the listeners and viewers really take the time to listen to all of what you said, because this is everything that they can gain value from, whether it's they want to be a chief or they're currently a chief and looking to maybe transition into retirement or retire and go into something else. Such valuable information. And I just want to really say thank you for your time here today.
Thanks for having me. And just remember, there is life after retirement, and it's good.
Yeah. And with that, so here's another thing on this particular podcast. So Kylie's coming in to close us out. And like, in law enforcement, anytime someone is really good at their job, inevitably they get promoted.
That's
and
right.
That has happened with Kylie. And this is Kylie's final episode here with us, episode 14. She's been here since the beginning. The brains behind this operation and making it successful. And she's moving on. And Sarah Gray is going to be her replacement. And I'll turn it over to you, Kylie. Thank you for all you've done for the program. And Sarah, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much, Dennis. That's very kind. Yes, very happy to have been a part of the Blue Leadership family and get this podcast off the ground. But yeah, I want to welcome Sarah. She's our new marketing coordinator, and she's going to be taking my place and becoming the newest member of the Blue Leadership family. So welcome, Sarah. We're happy to have you.
Thank you, Kylie. I'm really excited to join the Blue Leadership team and kind of be the eyes and ears behind the operation, but I'll be following in your footsteps, so I'm excited.
Great. Yeah, and thank you, Shawn, for your time today. It was really great to have you on. And to all of our viewers, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to meet the law enforcement heroes and leaders who are a part of the MS Lepsel family. If you'd like to watch previous episodes of Blue Leadership, you can find them on the video tab of our Facebook page or by searching USD Blue Leadership on YouTube. Thanks, everyone, and we will see you all next time. Thank you very much.